And Technical University of Kenya students will demonstrate this morning and present petitions to the Inspector General of Police protesting the shooting and killing of a third-year student by police. The student was allegedly killed by police in a case of mistaken identity in Pangani's Molango Kubwa area. They will begin their march by heading to Pangani Police Station before presenting their petition to the Inspector General of Police at Vigilance House. They also want the government to take care of the treatment cost of the survivor and the funeral cost for the bereaved, as well as compensation to his parents.
Tulikuwa tumetoka na rafiki yangu kwa nyumba. Tumekuja kununua tank kwa hii duka iko na hapa nyuma. Then we were shot from behind. Me na yeye, one bullet shot both of us.
Sasa ilikuwa inalenga huyu alikuwa anakimbia mbele yao askari. Ilikuja bahati mbaya ikapata hao vijana walikuwa wananunua mitungi hapa. Ikampika risasi yule wa kwanza, nafikiri alipikwa hapa mkono, ikaenda kwa yule wa pili. Ikampika yule wa pili ndiye alianguka hapo. Sasa mahali ya pale akaacha kifunguo hapo. Nao walipita wakikimbishana. Ambapo ile kitu tunabaini vijana wenyewe hawakuwa waisi. Walikuja watu watatu wakaongea na tulijua ni serikali sababu walikuwa na radio call. Na walikuwa wamevaa civilian ile kubainisha walikuwa serikali. Sababu radio call haiwezi kuwa na raia.
Hata kuweka hii kitu kwa OB imechukua siku 2. Maombi yangu ni haki itendeke kwa huyo kijana wangu.
All right, so be all the wiser if you're actually in Pangani, realizing that, of course, the students, they're going to be out in the streets today marching to the police, Pangani police station as well, and traffic is bound to be affected. We have with us also our panelists. I mentioned them to you, I introduced them to you, and I want them now to weigh in on this particular stories that we've done so far. Let's begin with the Baringo situation in the country right now. It seems it's not really going down well with the residents as far as police presence is concerned in that area as well. But the question is, why is the situation in Baringo not actually coming to normalcy? Let's begin with you, Mr. Werunga.
I think my problem with Baringo is we don't seem to know what we want as a country. We have no mission to accomplish what we want to accomplish in Baringo. We are mixing security issues and politics. And the moment you allow our security forces to lose that focus, then it becomes very difficult for them to have an agenda to deal with the situation that is in Baringo. One thing I don't understand is why they are burning houses, why they are burning shops. Because in any operations that some of us have been involved, and I can say I served the military for many years and I was actually involved as a pilot. There's nowhere in any operational mission where one of the objectives is to torch houses, kill animals. It's never been one. So one thing that I do not understand is why it is happening that way. Yes, we understand the Baringo-Kapedo region is a problem. But I'm not in a position, maybe the panels will assist me to understand why the police are going to that extent of burning houses, torching houses, killing animals, and we've seen it even in Laikipia. So my brief is that either we don't know what we want to accomplish in Baringo as a nation, or we've allowed politics to merge with our operational expectations and allowing our police forces to do what they are doing on the ground. Because what I know, and I'm not competent to comment whether it is true or not, is that this is being led by reservists. The structure of operations in any part of this country within the law is that the area divisional commander is always in charge of that operation, including the leadership of the reservists. Therefore, we cannot be talking about reservists as being the perpetrators of this violence on the Kenyan people, because the police structure is in place. And the commanding officer, the officer commanding division, and the county commander are in charge, actually by law, to ensure that reservists operate within the law. Reservists are put under leadership of the National Police Service, and therefore whatever actions that these people undertake within this operation, the buck stops with the officer in the National Police Service who is in charge of this operation. And therefore I cannot understand what as a nation we are going to achieve by killing animals, by torching houses, and therefore the people we are supposed to protect are the ones who are now suffering. Because our government and the police structure and the national intelligence and the detectives, the CID, they have the capacity to determine, pick out the criminals. If for some reason they are not able to pick out the criminals, then the community, to my understanding, should not be the victim. And therefore either we are failing as a nation to use the organs and instruments that we have and the capacity that we have to pick out the criminals and deal with them directly, and therefore loading our incapacity to deal with this on the people of this country. To me, that's where, because I cannot understand how else what we are seeing on TV and everywhere else is happening in a country that we believe in law and order. Yes, we know that area has a problem, but you don't create a problem when you are dealing with a problem. Because the country has mechanisms and systems that are supposed to deal with this.
Thank you. And of course, how do we then uncouple this situation where we have politics also mired with the security situation in that particular county right now? And there was the question also of the reservists themselves. How prepared were they? Because people were alleging, or the pundits were saying, this was just handpicked from the villagers without any training. So is there any rhyme or reason, first of all, as he asked, he doesn't really understand why they're burning their houses, why they're killing the animals. Some say because, you know, some of his herders are not taking away their cattle from the ranches of these people. That is on the case in point in Laikipia as well. George.
Debarl, I think what is happening in Baringo and Turkana is very unfortunate. And right now we are dealing with a kind of misadventure that the Americans had in Vietnam. These are the tactics that were used by the Americans, and they failed, banning Viet Cong villages. And if you look at the situation in Baringo, as Dr. has just pointed out, it's clear that we did not have operational plans when we were deploying officers to that area. And this is the reason why there's desperation. People are on the ground without any clear mission. They don't have any task they want to accomplish. So at the end of the day, what they're doing is burning houses, and it's becoming difficult for us to know exactly as a nation why we send these troops there. And I've looked at the combination of the security organs that are operating in Baringo right now. The other day, we sent the army there. What has been the impact of deployment of the military there? And we have a very kind of mixture in Baringo. We have the administration police, we have the Kenya police, we have the GSU, now we have the military. Exactly who is in command? And when these officers were being deployed there, were they deployed with operational orders? Because you're supposed to be given an operational order as the commander at that level, and then you push it down to the ground. Do these officers know exactly why they're in Baringo? And why are they now burning these, torching these houses? Why are they displacing people? It clearly shows a lack of strategy. They don't have a clear-cut task.
Yes.
And this is exactly what happened in '94. I think Captain was there when we had Operation Nyundo. The same tactics were used in Operation Nyundo, and now again we're using the same tactics, and they bore no fruit then. And I can also assure you that right now we're not getting anything, because we are now alienating the locals from helping the security agencies that are down there to deal with this problem. And if you, let's take an example of Mount Elgon. When the military was sent to Mount Elgon, they had done proper intelligence. They had collected enough intelligence. And the kind of attacks that were carried out there were driven by this intel information. And this is why you'll find that the military went targeting particular people. We saw caves being bombed because they were acting from intel. In this case, are we doing the same thing with Baringo? Are we dealing with bandits, or are we dealing with herders? Because nobody has actually cut the line and told us, now here, the problem is this. Why are these people burning houses, even the bandits themselves? Because you need to know the reason for you to come up with a proper strategy of dealing with that problem. So bandits who are out to steal livestock. We have people who are crying for historical injustices, probably having people claim that that land was there historically. And we are not addressing that. So there's a very, 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 very wide gap between knowing what is happening in Baringo and actually taking proper action to make sure that this does not happen again. It has been happening for a very long time.
Right. Okay, let's hear from Professor Noah Midamba.
Debarl, you know, this is really unfortunate, and I concur with my colleagues, Captain Werunga. I think brought in a number of points. George brought in a significant issue, having both of them having been there in the place. But the most unfortunate thing is that we are only a few months to our general election, and so you are not sure whether the security objective has been lost in politicking and everything else mixed up. The issue is the brute force, like George said, the brute force that we are applying there is just continue to anger the local people.
Yes.
These are people who are based on cattle lifestyle. And I saw the other day when cattle are being shot all over in the ranching settlement. That further anger people instead of helping people to harmonize. They needed to be a thorough understanding between the ranchers and the local people. They want this simply they want a place for their cattle to eat. And you know, 600,000 acres, we could have harmonized it and allow cattle to come and eat in certain part control area, and so that they can get out. Now, the other point, which is really unfortunate, is we're talking about 1994, and we're talking about 2017. The whole thing is continuously repeating itself, and people are really not going to the symptom. They're bringing brute force, and brute force with no clear objective. And therefore, it's deja vu again. We are all going to do that, and 2018 the same. This kind of behavior is completely unacceptable and cannot continue in this country.
All right. So is it the vagaries also of the hunger that we're in, of the famine and drought, Dr. Farah, you think?
Debarl, you can somehow attribute it to that. However, I think by looking at the bigger picture, I think we should put security within the context of the upcoming elections in August. Famine aside, I think just like my colleagues mentioned a little earlier, I think it's politics, and therefore the need for a complete review of the security machinery, as well as strategies in place within the context of that broader picture, because we're going for elections anytime now. However, I think famine is there, and I think this should be looked in line with the upcoming elections, and it should be, I think, somehow meditated on what would happen if the same arises in other parts of the country. More volatile areas, for example, northeastern Kenya, coast, there is no repeat of past pre-electoral tendencies to violence, especially at the time security forces are now to blame, allegedly, as opposed to people.
Right.
Common wananchi politicking.
So briefly, as we're winding up on this, how then do we uncouple security and the politicization of it in Baringo right now as we're getting up towards general election? Captain Werunga.
Initially, my understanding was that when the National Security Council decided to deploy the military, I was excited because I thought that now we have an agenda, we have a mission to accomplish, and we have a log frame on how to accomplish it. Because one of the most difficult things is for you to deploy the military and you don't allow them to operate within the strategic planning. Because before you allow the military to go on the ground, there are two things the president needs to do. One is to give a very clear order who is going to be in charge of that operation. And when you look at the Kenya Defense Forces Act, I think section something 31 or something. It is very clear where the President and Commander-in-Chief must issue that directive, that as we allow the military to go and operate with the police,
yes,
they are going to be in charge. And therefore the reporting, the backstopping with them is very clear. I'm not sure what order they were given this time, but if the military was to be given to be in charge, then even the police working within that framework will report to the military command on the ground. My worry, and I'm not sure whether it is true or not, I have a feeling that this operation was ad hoc. It was, they were sent to the area without being given clear instructions on what they need to do, because we could not be seeing this if it was very clear. Number two, the President, who is also the Commander-in-Chief, should have made it clear that this is a police operation, but the military is coming in to assist them. And therefore, the person in charge is the Inspector General. Now, if you don't clarify those things, it becomes very difficult even for the military to want to take responsibility when they are not very sure who is supposed to be in charge of this operation. And therefore, at the end of the day, I think my take is that we decide that we want to clear this Baringo problem once and for all, because all the facts are there. People have done research. The other day I was being bashed by people from Turkana because I said something about where Kapedo belongs from. There are facts on the ground. There are historical facts. We've read them. We've gathered them. And therefore the government knows exactly what the problem is in Baringo and Kapedo. And for as long as we don't deal with that problem and face it, like Professor said, we shall be in this quagmire for as long as we are, until we decide as a country we want to finish this. No country, Debarl, 21st century,
yes,
can allow something like this to happen. I'll give you an example as I finish. We had problems in Karamoja. And we know Museveni, most people don't take him to be a Democrat, but I'll give you an example. Karamoja and West Pokot were fighting for as long as we know. Museveni decided, I want to close up this business in Karamoja. So as a government, they came up with a strategy and said, yes, we know Karamoja are pastoralists, but we can also do something to make sure that they continue earning a living as a country. And therefore Museveni told them, surrender your arms and I'll deploy a battalion in Karamoja. And he deployed a battalion. So give me your arms. I'll come up with income generating projects in Karamoja, and I'll make sure they are done in Karamoja. He went ahead and appointed his wife as a minister in charge of Karamoja to ensure that this government initiative works. And therefore he deployed a battalion in Karamoja. He took income generating initiatives in Karamoja. They surrendered all their arms, and their problem was one. If we surrender this, how are we going to deal with the Pokots from Kenya? So the president assured them and told them, I'll put my military there. I think they came to some understanding with Kenya, where Kenya gave Museveni the right to pursue. In military terms, the right to pursue, it means even if you cross the border, that foreign army will pursue you. And therefore, within the context of that program framework, Karamoja has been quiet for as long as we know. If this government wants to clear these problems, then they must come up with very serious programs and strategies that will be long-term and must have effects and benefits to the people they're trying to deal with.
All right. Fair enough. Maybe I'll also give this chance to Professor Noah Midamba before we take a short break momentarily with the technical university students who will this morning be protesting as we're heading towards, or they will be heading towards Pangani police station because of a shooting of one of their students. The security of our students, of course, this I'm given to understand was a stray bullet, so it was not really targeted at the student because the police were pursuing also some bandits somewhere around the university. Tell us more about this.
Debarl, earlier on last year, I co-chair a committee that deals with all university security. The ministry has gone ahead and put together a task force, inter-university task force that is now looking at all security per each of the university. And one of our recommendations is that in the future, large universities like University of Nairobi need to have their own police force. This is done in almost every single university in America, Canada, and some universities in Europe. What it allow Debarl is people who understand the behavior of the students on a day-to-day basis. And this force is directly connected with the national security system, such that they can be called upon anytime the particular university is empowered to reinforce, and that worked perfectly. And therefore, whether this was intentional or whether this was accidental, students will react. You kill one of them, obviously they will come out and react. But we need to understand how it happened. It needs to be thoroughly explained within TUC system, who was responsible and how it happened. And if it was purposely, then that person needs to be prosecuted. And then we move on.
Right.
But with security on campus, we're taking them very seriously right now.
Thank you very much.